Okay, so we're going to talk about The Good Doctor because I do watch it, although I'm very squeamish, so I tend to watch the surgery scenes like this, like through a little sliver of my eyelashes, just so that I know when the scene is changed. But, as an autistic person, I just want to comment on it a little bit. So, first, I'm going to do the complaints, which Freddie Highmore is a neurotypical actor, so that's kind of annoying, but he has taken input from autistic people to help his portrayal, so it's not like he's just up there doing what he thinks autism is. He's trying to show what it really is as best as he can. He's doing his all. I can tell he's really working on it, and he does really well because on the first episode, I actually looked up to see if he was autistic or not because I couldn't tell in the beginning. So that's a good thing. If I couldn't tell, that's a good thing. So, that may be different for other autistic people, but in my mind, he does a pretty good job. Another complaint is yes, it supports Autism Speaks. The show supports them, which, I know, it's annoying. I have tried to contact the actors about it, but I haven't been able to reach them. So that's kind of annoying. But I hope someday to get them away from Autism Speaks, but I don't know. Now, something that I do find a little bit annoying about Sean is the savant thing. Why can't he just be a typical regular autistic person who just happens to have medicine and anatomy and surgery as his special interests? Because that's pretty much what it is, the savant thing. It just seems that he's able to visualize these things, but that's kind of a thing that autistic people can do is we might have something that we're really, really good at over here, and then we kind of suck at other things, and we might be really good at this over here. And, but autistic people are all different. And there are autistic people who may not have a super strong skill really anywhere. They just might have stuff they're good at doing, they're decent at doing. And they should be okay too. They should not have to have this one overreaching skill to make up for all the deficits that people like to claim are an autistic thing, because we're not a bundle of deficits. We don't need one magical skill to make us valid to everybody else. That's kind of an annoying thing that happens in The Good Doctor, and I will acknowledge that. And Sean's social naivete comes off as a little bit unrealistic to me, but that's just me and my experience, in that I tried to mask and blend in for about 20 years. From all of my teen years and from junior high almost until at least the 2010s is when I just took the mask off, and it just started to say I'm not going to hide my autism anymore. So, and a lot of that was just copying neurotypical behavior and mannerisms as best as I could, and never really questioning why. But I think what the show is trying to do, with Sean being socially naive, is that what they're trying to do is just to portray the autistic confusion with social behavior, which I can kind of understand. They're probably trying to do that as an artistic thing rather than an autistic thing. Ooh, pun. But, just the way it's being shown is a bit stretchy for me, but that's just me. And, before I go on, I do want to say I'm not speaking for all autistic people. I'm speaking for maybe a lot that might see things the way I do, but no autistic people are exactly alike. I just happen to see a lot of my own traits in Sean, so I find him very relatable. So as I go on, I'm going to go on to the good stuff now, the stuff that I like. And first and foremost is the very consistent stims and just quirks that Sean has that make him Sean, is that Freddie doesn't just do a weird thing because, autistic people, they just do weird things. That's not how it is. There's reasons we do the things that neurotypicals out there see as weird. And the show will actually give a lot of context so that when you see Sean doing a weird thing, it's very normal. So when I see Sean's character, I don't see Sean, the autistic guy, being autistic, doing autistic things. I see Sean being Sean. And that's very important to me because it's like the autism is part of him and it's like you cannot separate it from him. So when Freddie is being Freddie, he's not being Sean. And, you know, you're not going to see autism because Freddie Highmore is not autistic. But when he turns into Sean and he puts on the Sean costume and all that stuff and he gets into character, if he feels like a real person. You know, Sean feels like a real person. So to me, it's like I would totally go hit on him and just be like, hey, doctor, I got a problem. Can you fix it? But, you know, I would totally flirt with Sean Murphy. I would date the guy. I would just tell him, please don't show me the anatomy books because I'm squeamish. But that takes us to the next thing, which is when Sean visualizes, when you see how his mind is visualizing anatomy, that's pretty accurate to how my mind works with visualization. It's a pretty vivid, complete picture most of the time. But there's also the other sensory info, so like sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing, you know, all 5 senses. And, you know, if it's something like a roller coaster, I might feel the sensation of the roller coaster as I'm riding, the vestibular stimulation. So I'm a very complete sensory thinker most of the time. The sensory is first, word second, so I'm translating as I talk, which can be hard, which... that's another thing that the show does well, is the communication difficulties that Sean has. Because he is verbal, but in my headcanon, he wasn't always verbal. He learned to talk much later than other kids. So when he talks, it sounds very stilted and awkward, and he may not give you the complete idea of what he's saying. And that's very real, because I feel that. And when he's under intense emotions, he has trouble explaining why. He has trouble saying what the problem is, and I relate to that so well. It's eerie. It's like seeing me, and I like that. Sensory issues from Sean's point of view, as I experienced them, done well, because they do give you Sean's point of view, which I do like about that too, is seeing Sean's point of view. It's not just all these neurotypical characters and then the autistic person is the weird one whose point of view we don't see. We see everyone, including Sean. So when you like hear things the way he hears them, or you see them the way he sees them, I see it and it's like, hey mom, that's what it's like for me. And it's like, because I watch it with my mom. She will eat during the surgery scenes, by the way, and I'm like, oh, Mom, how can you eat? That's gross. But anyway, they showed us an autistic flop, which that was accurate in the situation he was in, because the hospital was under quarantine, so he had nowhere he could run. So he just lay down on the floor with his hands over his ears. But for me, when I'm doing a flop, I may go into my room and lay down on my bed, or I might lay down on a couch or something. When I went to a choir party last summer, or this recent summer, but last summer, I basically flopped on the host's couch. I just laid there. Of course, I was very drunk, but I flopped. I got there and I realized I couldn't handle it, and I didn't want to just leave right away, so I just flopped for the whole party. So everybody was walking by me, checking on me, but anyway, yeah. So the autistic flop, that's a thing, and it's a good thing that we saw an adult do it, because it's not just little kids who do. Adults flop too. Respect the flop. We just can't handle the situation. Let us be. And by the way, speaking of adult things, letting Sean experiment with adult things like romance and drinking. Because there was an episode where he got drunk and it was pretty funny. And he also experienced with a little bit of cannabis, I think. And he was hilarious then too. He was like, am I being normal? No, you're not. that was pretty funny. But, the potential that Sean could be having sex in the next few episodes, it seems pretty up there, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of playing a will they, won't they kind of a scenario. And I like that, because autistic people are often babied and infantilized and talked about as if we don't have adult desires. as an ace person and asexual myself, I don't have that drive to go and bone every man I see. You know, because when I do notice someone as attractive, it's usually men. So, you know, kind of a heteroromantic thing, but an asexual orientation. So, it's like when I see a guy, I think he's hot. When I look at a woman, it's like she's pretty, but I don't feel like I would want to go and touch her. Whereas with a guy, it's like I want to go touch him. And it's kind of, yeah. So, that's kind of how I guessed I'm heteroromantic. But I have no desire to have actual sex with anyone. So that's asexual. But Sean may not be. I would kind of like to see Sean experiment with a girl and then a guy and be like, maybe he likes both. Maybe he likes one or the other or doesn't like any. Maybe he figures out he's ace too. Or he could find out he's gay or bi or he's straight. Who knows? But I like the idea that he's experimenting and potentially going to have sex. Because, hello, autistic people have babies. Autistic people mother and father children. Autistic people have kids. We give birth and we adopt, just like anyone else. Although being autistic might make adoption difficult for some. I don't know. But finally, and lastly, the meltdown was done right. I have to say, I have to give the show props for showing Sean having a meltdown. Because, you know, I know there's some people that are like, why do they have to show that? And it's like, first of all, we need to know that adults have them too. Because we do. Adults have meltdowns and shutdowns too. And what they did was they showed the build up to it. They didn't show Sean just blowing up in a meltdown out of seemingly nowhere. They showed the tension rising and rising and rising and rising and rising, and boom! He blew up, melted down. And his behavior during the meltdown was so much like mine that when I was watching this show and it was building up, I was getting wound up too. And it's like when Sean finally had the meltdown, I actually felt relief because it's like, I know that feeling. You know, it feels like you're about to die and then you don't. And it's like everything is burning, and then just when you think you're going to die, you're born. Oh, did I just quote Doctor Who? Yes, I did. That was the 13th Doctor coming out. Oh! I do like how they showed the meltdown, because the first time they showed it, they showed the whole thing. And then the second time, they cut away. So, like, you saw the start of it, and then you saw kind of the tail end of it, and then it kind of cut. I wrote a fanfic for Breakdown that kind of fills in that missing scene. So, you know, but I'm pretty sure we saw Sean going into another meltdown. And he had a right to, because he was in a very unfair situation. But anyway, those are my thoughts on The Good Doctor, and overall I like it. I think it's a pretty good show, and I enjoy it. I just kind of squint at the surgery scenes like this, like I said. But I find Sean very relatable. It's like seeing a man version of myself on TV. I just kind of wish they had an autistic actor, because, you know, those little nuances that are missing are kind of obvious, and when you're autistic you can see that. When you're not, you don't. But the fact that I had to look up if he was autistic or not when I initially watched the first episode, that's a good thing. You know, and as I get used to Sean, I can kind of see those other little things, but they don't take away from it for me. Because he's neurotypical, but he's trying. I mean, he is really trying, and I have to give him props for that. But something we do need to remember is that, you know, Freddie Highmore is probably going to get Emmy Awards if he hasn't already. I can't remember if he did or not, but he gets rewarded for pretending to be autistic. And he can make it go away as soon as the director says, cut! But a person who is actually autistic, it doesn't go away because somebody said cut. But we get punished for being autistic and for being weird and acting weird and being uncooperative or unreasonable or speaking out for our own humanity. And we get punished for it. But somebody who pretends to be us gets rewarded. And that's kind of a thing you need to be aware about. There's some people, they call it cripping up. You know, when an abled actor portrays a disabled character. Because, you know, some actors who are disabled, they can't just make their disability go away to play an able-bodied character, so they can't uncrip up, you know. So, but overall, The Good Doctor is pretty good. But I can see why other autistic people are frustrated with it. So, you know, I'm not going to say your opinion is wrong, and I'm not going to say my opinion is right. It's just my opinion is that it's pretty good. But that's from my own experiences. And my experiences aren't everyone else's. So, there you go. I like The Good Doctor. Maybe give it a try.